March 16th, 2021. This meeting is being conducted pursuant to Governor's Executive Order 202 of the year 2000, which provides for virtual public meetings in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic. Visitors are invited to join the board and staff in rising to recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty, justice for all.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Okay, roll call. Councilwoman Freeman.
Here.
Councilman Perticone.
Here.
Councilwoman Romeo.
Here.
Councilman Weiner.
Present.
Supervisor Seeley.
Here.
Attorney for the town.
Here.
Thank you.
Good evening. Before we get to our body of work, I just note we do have a 7:35 public hearing tonight regarding the town's draft police reinvention and reform plan, which was developed pursuant to Governor's Executive Order 203. That draft was made available and accepted by the board from the chief at last month's meeting and put out to the public for review. It was received by the board, put out for review. We used the public hearing to amend and take that public feedback to have a finalized document by next month, April the 1st. Just while we're up here, I just want to allow people to understand how they can participate in the public forum. If you're calling in and you're on right now and you're listening, it's as simple as hitting pound 9 or star 9, to raise your hand. If you're on Zoom as a guest of this webinar, you would just raise your hand in the bottom of the toolbar. We'll make sure we allot enough time, and if we can see people are on and perhaps are having some difficulties, by all means you can use the chat function as well. If you're having difficulty, our goal is to ensure that everyone who wants to participate in the public hearing is able to do so. So I'll leave that up a short while longer. Okay, and we're back. With that, we have public input. This is probably going to be the last month, knock on wood, that we conduct our regular town board meeting via Zoom. It's our hope we can get back to in-person meetings in the Broderick Room while still adhering to public health guidelines. But we've made some modifications in the Broderick Room, keeping the safety of the board in mind, and I think we're ready to go. But for one last month, public hearing will be read aloud, which was submitted to supervisor at Irondequoit.org or dropped off at Town Hall in a written form. We have 2 residents who have asked to have their written remarks heard by the board. The first comes from Diane White, who identifies herself as president of the Somerville, White City, Windsor, and Beetree Beach Residents Association, 873 Washington Avenue. Dear members of the board, I am a legal resident of the town of Irondequoit and also the president of the Somerville, White City, Windsor, and Beetree Beach Residents Association, representing 50 members. Last week, we were made aware that a building permit was issued by Carrie Ivers on behalf of the town for 301 Lakefront, Rochester 14617. The building permit was issued based upon a site plan that includes the inaccurate property lines in reliance of Cred Rusticia's deed, which contained a property description which is defective, emphasis added, and not consistent with the original deed description of tone to salmon. More significantly, this involves town property, which is the extension of Washington Avenue. The site plan and deed of Mr. Rusticia described the eastern property line as being the center line of Washington Avenue extension, which is the extension of the road Washington Avenue in the town of Irondequoit, County of Monroe, State of New York. However, the original deed description of the property is, quote, on the east by west line of Washington Avenue as shown on said map extending northerly to Lake Ontario, end quotation. Library 449 of Deeds, page 111. The planning board was notified several times that there was an issue with the property line on the east side of the property dedicated to the site plan. In November 2020, we objected by email, both myself and the Residents Association, to the issuance of the building permit as it was based on a site plan that contained a defect in the deed that defect, which in essence implies the town of Irondequoit gave a portion of Washington Avenue Extension, which is public property, for the use of a private person or company. We requested that the town hold on issuing a permit until such time that Mr. Restitius corrected the deed and the site plan to reflect the correct property line description, being the western line of the Washington Avenue Extension. Even the owner's title insurance policy, which was presented to the town to show ironically that no public easements were present on the property, provides the description as being the western line, which is inconsistent with Mr. Restitius' deed. Nevertheless, the site plan still reflects the defective description of the deed. Nevertheless, this discrepancy was ignored by Ms. Ivers in the Building and Planning Department, and the building permit was issued on December the 1st of the year 2020. The New York Constitution states that a town or municipality is prohibited from making gifts or loans of any money or property to any individual or private corporation or association, which is quoted as Article 8, Section 1. Since the town was put on notice that Mr. Restitius' deed shows the eastern property extending into the middle of the public road extension, and his setbacks and site plan are based on this property line, and that the site plan and building permit were approved by the town, the implication is that the town gave the property to the individual in violation of the state constitution. This needs to be addressed and can only be addressed by the town board. For this reason, we would like to present the town board at the next meeting that the planning board has overstepped their authority issuing this building permit based on an inaccurate property line which involved the town property. And that permit needs to be revoked and order a cease and desist of further development until the site plan is corrected with setbacks from correct property line and this issue involving town property is resolved. Very truly yours, Diane White, excuse me. The second letter comes from Timothy Sengel, who doesn't leave his address, but states he's from the Beatrice, Somerville Beach, Windsor Beach Association. The property deed for 301 Lakefront was altered to make the property more attractive by adding 24.75 feet of the town of Irondequoit easement right-of-way property of Washington Avenue to the 301 Lakefront property by changing a few words and then adding a new survey. Attached, you will find the original deed and the new deed stated June 26, 1978. Board members have been furnished those attachments. The town map of 1918 shows the original property lines. This information was presented to the planning board and the community development office, but the information has been ignored. The site plan using the altered deed has been submitted and building permit issued using the altered deed. Our question is, what town of Irondequoit employee has the authority to abandon the town of Irondequoit easement right-of-way property on the northwest portion of Washington Avenue and ignore town building codes and then award land to a private property developer? The property owner has deposited 40 to 60 cubic yards of unknown fill over a 1-acre portion of the property to include covering 50 feet of the beach area and existing sidewalks without any permits. This area also all part of the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative project. Information is attached. The board members have that. There has not been an environmental impact study submitted to determine the necessary EPA permits required and the composition or toxicity of the fill. The site plan does not comply with the town building code 1-20021 235-9. It's a height over 30 feet and yard setback found in the town code, also attached. The property building permit should be halted until all code conflicts have been corrected. Sincerely, Timothy Sengel. Reminder, board members, public input. Our intent here is to receive public input. We will respond to the residents accordingly, as we always do, and make sure you are copied in on those responses. And if it warrants further discussion, we will discuss at a further time. And that is all the public input we have received. With that, we can move on to approval of minutes.
February 9, 2021, the workshop meeting.
Motion to approve.
Moved.
And a second.
Second.
Thank you. Questions, comments, revisions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes are approved.
February 16, 2021, the regular town board meeting.
Motion to approve.
Moved.
And a second.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Weiner. Any questions, comments, revisions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The minutes are approved.
February 23, 2021, the special town board meeting, executive session.
Excuse me, Madam Clerk. Motion to approve.
Moved.
Thank you, Ms. Romeo. A second.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Perticone. Questions, comments, revisions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved, and I'm already going out of order, so we can go back to the financial report. Madam Comptroller.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. In this report, I am presenting a preliminary look at the year-end 2020 financial results for the town as of February 28th. At the June town board meeting, the town's auditors from the Bonadeo Group, will present highlights of the audited 2020 financial statements and audit report. The preliminary 2020 year-end financial results as of February 28th, 2021. The town's total expenses are lower than budget at 94.3%, a sum of $34,967,000. Actual expenses totaling $34,523,000 equate to 93.1% of budget, and encumbrances of $444,000 represent 1.2% of budget. The general fund expenses are below budget at 94.7%, or $21,016,000. The actual expenditures are 93.2% of budget, or $20,691,000. The remaining 1.5% is due to $325,000 of encumbrances. Encumbrances include $174,000 for vehicle purchases for the police department, animal control, and the tree program. Overall, the expenses in the highway fund are below budget at 90.5%, a total of $4,938,000. Primary expenditures include salt, fuel, vehicle and equipment parts, and paving materials. Outstanding encumbrances of $61,000 represent 1.1% of budget and include a truck purchase of $39,000. The library expenditures are below budget at 93.1%, a total of $2,523,000. Expenses in the sewer fund of $4,083,000 are below budget at 97.5%. The stormwater drainage expenses of $1,229,000 represent 98.8% of budget. The general fund has recognized revenue of $22,943,000, or 105% of that budget. Real estate taxes of $11,185,000 have been collected. 101% of the payment in lieu of tax revenue of $261,000 has been received. 12 months of sales tax revenue of $4,872,000, or 94.1% of budget, have been recorded. Mortgage tax receipts totaling $1,213,000, or 148% of budget, have been recorded. And franchise cable TV revenue of approximately $683,000 are below budget at 91.2%. Included in the other sources of revenue is AIM-related payments of $613,000, which supersedes the AIM previously received from New York State, and $1,200,000 CARES Act reimbursements from Monroe County for COVID-19 related expenses. Regarding the entire town, $37,531,000, or 103.9% of revenue and appropriated fund balance have been documented to date. At year end, the library has confirmed 98.2% of revenue, a total of $2,656,000, which includes $33,000 of CARES funding reimbursement from Monroe County. 102%, or $5,551,000 of revenue has been recorded by the highway fund. A multimodal grant of $200,000 is included. 100% of the sewer fund, or $4,158,000, has been verified. Storm water drainage has recorded $849,000, or 101% of its budgeted revenue. This concludes the final preliminary 2020 year-end financial report as of February 28th, 2021. The second report, the 2021 financial results for the town as of February 28th. Total expenses, actual as well as encumbered, are $7,243,000, or 19.4% of budget, which is higher than the 16.7% of the year that has elapsed. The breakdown is actual expenditures, $4,250,000, and encumbered expenses, $2,993,000. Encumbrances are typically high early in the year as departments are committing to services and supplies that will be needed throughout the year, and outstanding prior year encumbrances roll into the new year. The general fund expenses are at 19% of budget, or $4,324,000. The breakdown is actual expenditures, $2,777,000, encumbrances, $1,547,000. Together, the expenses in the highway funds total $1,463,000, or 25.8% of budget. Expenditures in the library are under budget at $219,000, or 8.3%. The sewer fund expenses are 20% of budget, equating to $834,000. The stormwater drainage expenses totaling $129,000 equate to 14.3% of budget. The general fund revenue received is $12,769,000, or 56.9% of budget. Included in revenue is $11,799,000 of real estate tax, 100% of budget, $163,000 of payment in lieu of tax revenue, which is approximately 61% of budget. Regarding the entire town, $24,423,000, or 66.2% of revenue has been collected to date. Real estate tax and special district fees totaling $23 million have been fully received. The library has received $2,507,000, or 94.8% of its budgeted revenue. The collective highway fund receipts of $4,087,000 represent 73.3% of its budgeted revenue. Sewer fund has received $3,995,000, or 97.9% of that fund's budget, and $867,000, or 97% of stormwater drainage budget has been received. This concludes the financial report for the month of February 2021.
Thank you, Madam Comptroller. Just to note, kudos to you. A very challenging year last year. We were able to end up on the positive side, about $1.2 million under budget on the revenue, on the expenditures for general fund. With general fund is really what we look for, because that's our primary tax dependent account. But also on the revenue side, thanks to probably some above average, above projected mortgage tax receipts that really negated out some reductions in sales tax revenue. And even without that CARES Act support from the county, which we certainly welcome, we would have probably been right at budget on the revenue side. So all things considered, we're going to end the year probably about $2.4 million to the favorable. So that's good. That's money we'll look to return to the taxpayers through investments in our town throughout, that we hope to target and make in the coming years. Any further questions from the board? Hearing none, I'll take a motion to accept the financial report.
Moved.
Thank you, Ms. Romeo. In a second.
Second.
Mr. Weiner, any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Financial report is approved. We can now move on to items for board action. Madam Clerk, number 2 under appointments.
Item number 2, resolution to approve the promotion to a motor equipment operator.
Motion to adopt.
Moved.
In a second.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Weiner. Mr. Kiley, an explanation, please. Mr. Kiley, you're on mute, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Not sure why there's a little bit of rust here, but the resolution before the board this evening is for the appointment of Richard Wolf to the position of motor equipment operator within the town of Irondequoit. Wolf has been a town employee since 1994 and has been an exemplary employee with regard to his physical talents on various pieces of equipment. As such, the interview committee consisting of myself, Deputy Commissioner McGee, Labor Foreman Champion, and Labor Foreman Labini have unanimously supported Mr. Wolf's promotion to the position of motor equipment operator, and hope that the board takes that action tonight.
Thanks, Bob. Any questions on the resolution in chief? As Ms. Romeo pointed out in workshop, one of the impacts of this and reasons we're doing it is to reduce out of title. And
Right.
it was something we recognized at last year's budget, and that's a good thing for us. It's more predictable and just better budgeting. So happy to approve this, and congratulations to Mr. Mistrella. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is adopted.
Item number 3, approving the promotion to a tree supervisor.
Motion to adopt,
Moved.
and second?
Second.
Thank you. Mr. Colley, an explanation.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. The position of tree supervisor is a new title within the Department of Public Works. It was posted pursuant to the CSEA guidelines in our collective bargaining agreement. The promotional opportunity was applied for by one candidate, that candidate being Mark Mistrella, a town resident who has worked for the department since 2003. Mr. Mistrella is a tree trimmer and has been supervising the tree crew, for many years now. Ultimately, this position, tree supervisor, Mr. Mistrella would take on more of a leadership role that he, to a certain degree, already does, and we would expand upon that. Whereas he would have both operational control over individuals in the field for cutting and trimming, for planting of new trees, recommendations on said right-of-way trees, and ultimately, in hopes that we would have more of an efficient and effective operation when it comes down to takedowns, trims, and replanting of our urban canopy. One of the most important and highly visible featured things in Irondequoit, those mature streets, that are lined with mature trees.
Thanks, Bob. Any questions on the resolution? I have a correction, obviously. The board probably knows this because they're smart, and they would have thrown something at me if we were all in the same room. The intent of this resolution is actually to reduce out-of-title work, not the previous one. This is a new position that the board recognized, so congratulations to Mr. Stone. Not being promoted for 2 positions, but I'm happy that we're moving forward with this investment in the department. Any further questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The resolution is adopted.
Item number 4, affirming appointments to Historic Preservation Commission.
Motion to adopt,
Moved.
and a second.
Second.
Ms. Ivers, an explanation, please.
Hi there. This is affirming the current membership of the Historic Preservation Commission to ensure good standing and allow them to continue to do their good work as outlined in Chapter 236 of the Town Code.
Thank you, and we do commend all of our historical preservation members for their good work. We do have a few vacancies that we're going to be posting, and hopefully we've gotten some interest, and the board will be reviewing potential appointments. But for now, we're affirming existing membership and thank them for all of their hard work. We have at least one veteran of the Conservation Board. Actually, no veterans of the Historical Preservation Board. Ms. Romeo is a former Conservation Board chairwoman. Mr. Wayner is a Planning Board chairman. Ms. Romeo is a Planning Board chairman. But back to the Historic Preservation Commission. Thank you to all their members: Christopher Brandt, Judy Boleen, Bruce Danball, Mark Johns, Tom Knopf, Greg Walther, for their service. Any further questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is adopted.
Item number 5, authorizing the hiring of a part-time clerk.
Motion to adopt.
Moved.
And a second.
Second.
Thank you. This would hire a part-time clerk, Jade Lucas, under the supervisor's office at a rate of $16.33 an hour. To assist with administrative functions relative to our Irondequoit Commission Advancing Racial Equity. I think it's important that we provide support for that initiative and other town initiatives, and that is what necessitates this part-time appointment. Any questions or comments? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is adopted.
Item number 6, approving the provisional appointments of 2 police lieutenants.
Motion to adopt.
Moved.
And a second.
Second.
Thank you. Chief, an explanation, please, sir?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Supervisor. The move to promote 2 provisional lieutenants comes from vacancies that we've had since August of last year. We had done interviews of candidates back in October. The two candidates that are currently in the acting lieutenant position, which would be Andrew Whitaker and Ken Gorton, have been doing a great job. What we've learned through the process is that through civil service requirements, after 90 days, these candidates need to be made provisional. And that's why we're coming forward now to do this, with the understanding that both candidates do have to successfully pass and score within a reachable location on the civil service list. And the next lieutenant's test is given, which is slated for the fall of this year.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions or comments from the board? Also, just want to commend our Nightstick Club leadership for working with the town on this to get a resolution and ensure that these positions are filled while providing people. We've provided people the opportunity to perhaps get the experience and put their hat in for these positions, but certainly commend the 2 now provisional lieutenants for their appointment. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is adopted.
Item number 7, appointing a town historian.
Motion to adopt.
Moved.
Thank you, Ms. Romeo. On a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilwoman Freeman. Carrie, do you want to, Ms. Cybers, do you want to just explain this as far as in your department? I'll probably editorialize a little bit, but go ahead, Ms. Cybers.
Absolutely. We have a past employee, longtime employee, who has been serving as an informal town historian. To all who know him, Greg Merrick, who recently retired as the fire marshal for the town, was also spent lots of time sharing his knowledge and information, and just a wealth of stories about the history of the town, both from its people to its things that it's known for, its buildings, and almost with encyclopedic recall without having to really check. But he just has a great interest, and he expressed interest in, once the position was identified as a volunteer position, and can see a lot of opportunity to really capture the stories of the town, ensure the information and the artifacts that we have currently will be well cataloged and organized and cared for, and then continue to do that work going forward. So it's my pleasure to recommend his appointment to town historian Greg Merrick.
Yeah, I would thank you, Ms. Iris, and I would be remiss if we're talking about Greg, also just tip my hat to Patricia Wayne, who was a long-serving town historian after serving many years in the city school district. I believe she was over 3 decades as the town historian and retired in the middle of last year. This is an important position. The aforementioned Historical Preservation Commission, this works as a staff liaison to that and helps them with their work and helps them understand their charge under town code and pursuant to state law. But, you know, we have a rich history. We have a lot of, I don't call them artifacts, but historically significant material in our basement and throughout town hall and our attic. Our goal is to be custodians of that history, both those physical relics, but also ensure that people understand Irondequoit's entire history, the good points, the bad points, but that we have a full comprehension. And Greg is someone who, if he didn't have all his other great attributes, at the very least, he would be thorough and diligent and detail-oriented. But he's a joy to be around. I've missed him the past several months, so this is a part-time unpaid position. I'm going to assume he's going to be working 40 hours a week, and we'll probably be putting all of us to shame. But I'm happy to recommend this appointment. This would be a term through December 31st, 2024. Any further questions from the board?
Mr. Supervisor, I just want to just take a moment to commend Greg for wanting to return to us to serve his community. I'm not sure that if I was in his position and was retired that I'll be eager to get back to work, but I'm just pleasantly pleased that he will be continuing to serve our town, and I look forward to working with him.
Thank you, Councilwoman Freeman, and I second that. Anyone else? Hearing no further comment, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Resolution is adopted. Congratulations, Mr. Merrick. And again, my apologies to Richard Wolf, appointed as an MEO. I referenced the wrong employee being appointed. So, Mr. Wolf, congratulations on your appointment as a motor equipment operator in the DPW department. We can now move on to item for board action number 8 under community development. Madam Clerk.
All right, item number 8, authorizing the town to enter into an agreement with CSG Forte Payments, Inc. for credit card processing associated with the town's permitting software.
Motion to adopt.
Moved.
In a second.
Second.
I'll give it to Ms. Romeo. Ms. Ivers, an explanation, please.
This is an agreement that would allow the company that works with the software that we use. It's IPS. That's our software for building permits and code enforcement. We're about to bring on online processing for those permits. That's a web portal. And in order to do that, credit card payments need to be processed online. And it also provides an opportunity to process credit cards directly linked to IPS. This is a proprietary service, and a contract is needed with this secondary proprietary company.
Thank you. Any questions from the board for Ms. Ivers on the resolution? No, nothing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The resolution is adopted. Madam Clerk.
Item number 9, authorizing 2020 interfund closing transfers to appropriate funding to the self-insurance fund.
Motion to adopt.
Move.
Thank you, Mr. Perdico. And a second.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Weiner. Comptroller Marsh, an explanation, please.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. This resolution will allow for transfers from various operating funds of the 2020 budget to the self-insurance fund for open workers' comp claims. And the figures indicated in the exhibit are based on information received from HR.
Thank you, Madam Comptroller. And as we pointed out in the workshop, we're self-insured for workers' comp. We have to make sure we're adequately reserved, and this is part of our annual process of doing that. Appropriate appropriations from the general fund balance. Any questions or comments from our board? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The resolution is adopted.
Item number 10, authorizing a series of balanced appropriation transfers within several funds of the 2020 operating budget.
Motion to adopt.
Moved.
In a second.
Second.
Thank you. Comptroller Marsh, an explanation, please.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. This resolution will allow for the annual budget transfers for the 2020 budget year. The transfers are within each fund to properly reflect the allocation and expenditures of those funds. Each fund is transferred within itself. The only fund balance draws being requested are a small fund balance from drainage for about $1,200. And lighting district fund balances, which were reflected in the 2020 budget.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? I know we've reviewed the lengthy attachment. This is part of our year-end book cleaning, and hopefully didn't make Comptroller Marsh's life too miserable. But thank you, Diana, for clearly laying this out for us in a manner that we can comprehend. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is adopted. Okay, Madam Clerk, we can now move on to the public hearing.
Okay. Public hearing number 1 on the matter to allow for comments to draft police reform and reinvention plan.
Motion to open public hearing.
Moved.
In a second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the public hearing is now open. Just as we've done in the past, I'm just going to again put up the instructions of how to participate. For those of you who are on phone, you should be webinared in. I think we have one person on phone right now that I see in the chat. It's *9 to raise your hand. If you're on via Zoom as a guest, you just need to raise your hand using the functions in the Zoom. If you do have questions, I encourage you to use the chat function. Leave that up for a little bit longer. Okay, we're gonna hear from Chief Laird first, who developed this executive order. Just a little bit of background. On June 12th, 2020, Governor Cuomo signed Executive Order 203, establishing the New York State Police Reform and Reinvention Collaborative. The order maintained that every government unit in New York State with a police department must develop a plan to improve the deployment strategies, policies, procedures, and practices of law enforcement within their communities. We welcome this charge. We're committed to addressing the needs of all the members of our community served by our police, as well as working to establish trust, fairness, and accountability in our efforts to ensure there is equity in the administration of law enforcement. Chief Laird's going to go into how the plan was developed. He's done a very diligent job in complying with Executive Order 203 and presenting us a very solid draft document. And we've worked to provide feedback from the board. And this serves the next stage of the process to provide feedback from the general public as well. The board must adopt the final plan by April 1st, 2021, which brings us to this public hearing tonight. At present, we have one resident who has raised their hand. It's Miss Sherry, who also submitted written testimony, but I'm gonna allow her to enter in. But first, we're gonna have Chief. Why don't you take it away and just give us an overview of the plan, the charge, and what we're looking at tonight and discussing.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. As the supervisor stated in June of this year, Governor Cuomo directed that we had to, under this executive order, that we had to reimagine and reform policing. Immediately, myself, along with every other police chief in Monroe County and some faith-based leaders, began to meet in the basement of a church on Joseph Avenue, and we dedicated ourselves to serving this community by doing just what the executive order asked us to do. With that, we talked with residents all over Monroe County. We were the first community to hold a community forum, and we did so in July of 2020. We had residents from all over the town, residents from all over the county that were there. I participated in 6 other of these community forums throughout Monroe County. In each of these meetings, I met somebody that had ties to Irondequoit, whether it was where they worked, they had family members, where their doctor's office was, whatever it may be. They always talked about how they would come to our town, and so they were really vested in providing their feedback to me. The document that came out of this that was submitted to the town board last month is the words of the community members that I met with. The process that we went through was an absolutely amazing process, mainly because what we found out is law enforcement, the community, our elected officials, our business owners, anybody that we spoke to, we all have the same goal. And that was for our law enforcement officers to act and serve their community with professionalism. And while they're serving the community, also having some very simple emotions as they go through: dignity, empathy, and compassion with everybody that they deal with. Another thing that we learned is transparency builds the trust of the community, and we are committed to doing that as well. Throughout this draft plan and throughout everybody that I spoke with, one piece was consistently brought up, and that was officer wellness. Officer wellness is very important to me. We've committed to the wellness of the officers of this department, because in order for these officers to serve their community in the manner they need to, with professionalism, dignity, empathy, sympathy, they need to be in a good place themselves. And they need to have the support that from their community. They need to have the support from their administration, from their town, which they do have, and we're going to work to ensure that that continues. One of the main ways that we want to do this is through crisis intervention training. So not only are we serving the community and providing those services to each and every resident that we may have contact with that is going through a crisis, but also having those tools in our toolbox to help our fellow coworkers, not only from this agency, but from other agencies, to help cope with a very stressful job, but in manners that will allow them to continue to serve the community as they should. And as I stated before, that way is with professionalism, dignity, empathy, and compassion. I'm really looking forward to hearing the input from the community on this, as well as from the town board. And I thank you for the opportunity to be a part of this.
Chief, thank you. And I don't know if any board members have questions. I just want to just get a few things on record, just as you to follow up on what you mentioned. One of the things identified in here is recruitment, and I think I noted in some comments of the plan is when I grew up, the town was about 97% white, and now it's about 80%. So it's becoming more diverse, and one of our shared goals of the town board and the department, I think, is to ensure that we really push to try and get some diversity in the department. And I think the town board shares that responsibility because ultimately we're the ones that hire, and we recognize that. So, we've talked a little bit about civil service is having some barriers, but also some things that we proactively can do. Would you mind just speaking perhaps to both some of the civil service challenges we'd like to perhaps see removed, as well as some of the proactive things we might be doing to broaden our recruitment?
Yes, absolutely. So some of the civil service barriers that we have to come over is just the way that we have to process the list. So when a candidate takes the test, once they get their scores, we have to hire from a band of scoring. Best way I can describe this is in the most recent process. When we started the hiring process back in about August of last year for recruits that are in the academy now, we had 3 spots to fill. We had 7 people that we could start the process with, and that's very difficult to do. It's very difficult when you have to hire based on those civil service restrictions to further expand the list. It's another way I can put it is, if somebody scores, say they score 90 the first time around, they can get processed, but another person scores an 85, they have to wait to the second round of hiring to be processed. My thought is, if they're good enough for the second round of hiring process, why aren't we able to process them the first time around? And sometimes what we find is that we're being limited by the restrictions of civil service. And we've worked with numerous groups to try and find ways to get to our state officials to work on those changes. And there's a lot of different aspects to it. We understand that this is a heavy lift, but we are working to have those days in front of our state elected officials, as it is a state law for civil service that governs it, to express what we want. And one of the big things that we are going to show is, not only is this something that town governments want, that have their own police agencies, and human resources departments that are in the towns with their own agencies, the residents want it, the police agencies want it. So this is something that when we say we have 100% buy-in to help diversify our departments so they represent the community that they serve, we can say that without any reservations that everybody wants this change.
Thanks, Chief. Any board members have questions for Chief?
No, I just want to make a quick comment. As we look forward to incorporating some more input from our residents, I wanted to take this opportunity to thank Chief Laird for the work he's done on this, and for recognizing and incorporating some of the input he's already received from the board.
I second that. Well said. Any further questions?
Dave, I was at one of the community forums they had, and in this summary, it looks like, the chief did capture just about everything that was talked about there, and it must have been throughout the communities. Everybody felt the same way. So good job, Chief. I think everything that I saw that was talked about has been implemented in this summary, which is a good thing. And I know this is a lot of work here. And like Timmy said, I'm glad he implemented some of the things that some of the board talked about as well too. So thank you.
Yes, and I would like to just thank Chief and as well as the members of the Eye Care Commission. This past Saturday, they sat with Chief and we did a peer review of this plan and made suggestions for him, and that will be made available to the board by next week, Tuesday. But I want to thank him for taking the time to take part in that peer review, but also to explain some of the things and to help us come up with some recommendations that will be beneficial for both community members and the officers that serve our community.
Yep. Thanks, Chief, for all you did, and I'm glad that Eye Care has some ability to provide some input, and great that this is moving forward, proceeding forward, I should say.
Thank you, Peter, and thank you, Ms. Freeman. I'll just also note, you know, Chief's very humble, but he stood with County Executive Bello and several of his law enforcement partners today for a very important announcement that the county, I believe, is doubling the number of forensic innovation team members to help with some of those mental health calls that have always been prevalent and presented challenges, but I think now are probably more in the forefront, and it's nice to see that we're working together, not just in Irondequoit, but the greater Rochester community, to ensure that there's we're more thoughtful and adequately resourced to respond to those. Okay, thank you, Chief. Chief, perhaps if any residents talking have specific questions, we always like to leave the expert on to come back to answer. So otherwise, we're here to be a sponge and receive feedback. We have one person who's raised their hand. Again, if you're on, we have 6 people on as attendees. If you do want to talk, please raise your hand and we will chime you in. With that, I'm going to call on Ms. Cherry, and she should be live.
Hear me?
Yes, I can. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. I did submit written comments and don't want to reiterate them here. I just want to acknowledge that, you know, historically, communities of color and poor communities have had a challenging relationship with police departments in general. And the past year with the RPD has been pretty amazing. And I can only assume that you're getting some guilt by association that is not necessarily warranted for Irondequoit, but you know, you wear a uniform that looks similar. And so I think that your goal of transparency is particularly important. I did hear today that announcement about doubling the staff in the FIT team, and I think that that's great. And I think that the more information that you provide about the race and age, or probably not age, race and gender of the people that you stop, the people that you arrest, how many of your calls do in fact involve the FIT team. I think the more of that kind of information that you can provide, the better. As Supervisor Seeley noted, the demographics of our town have changed and will likely continue to change. And I, for one, am in favor of that. I know it's challenging for some folks. And you know, whatever we can do to welcome people, the better. So thank you. That's all I had to say.
Thank you, Ms. Cherry. And your written comments are in the record. The board members have received them. They will be transmitted along with the adopted local plan that's sent to the state. You know, because we want to make sure we are providing residents the opportunity. We did have one resident, Mr. Andre Evans, Colonel Andre Evans, who's on, who can't use his microphone. Chief, are you able to see his comments and maybe be able to just respond to them. I can read it, but maybe you can give us a little bit of feedback. Can you see that in the chat?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so Andre Evans, I'm sure you wouldn't mind me reading this. He says, I personally and professionally feel we have one of the best and dedicated police departments in New York. Can Chief elaborate on how the new plan will address the following: drug abuse, mental health crisis and police in the community, restorative justice, integration with our schools, what anti-racist policies will be put forth to weed out hidden racism? Chief, I'm not going to put you on the spot with all those, and certainly we'd like to probably try and respond to all those in the plan, or ensure that we try to incorporate or reflect those comments in the plan. But sir, if you just want to give some response to that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess the easiest way to try and put them all together in a response would be that we're looking to expand our training with all the officers, and not necessarily just focusing on training provided by law enforcement agencies. Looking outside of our field to have the experts in those areas come to us to provide us the training. We do work with many different organizations that we have built these relationships with that provide these trainings. So we're looking to get that in a position where we can have many of the officers attending those. One of the big things with the crisis intervention training is we made a commitment back in January to get all of our officers crisis intervention trained. It's a 40-hour training, and we're working on that. We work with the public safety training facility as well as all the other agencies in the county to get officers in that program. But in addition to that 40 hours, what I think is very important to point out this goes through the crisis intervention training. It will touch on restorative justice, also touches on the mental health crisis of the police and the community as well, is there's 8-hour annual recertifications that every officer will be going through after they receive the initial training. So it's not a one and done. It's an ongoing training where the newest and best practices are brought to the officers. So we are continuing to learn about and adapt to the needs of the community, as well as what information is brought to us to better serve everybody.
Thanks, Chief. And I'm looking at the first point Mr. Evans made, drug abuse. I'm not sure if this is currently in the draft plan, but should be added, is the IPD, since the start of Drug Free Irondequoit Together, our drug coalition, has been an active member and probably one of the most valued partners for Defy Together. So, community-based efforts like that, I think, are kind of at the essence of the community policing model and reaching out to those community stakeholders to try and affect positive change. Okay, would anyone else wish to raise their hand? Otherwise, we have now some feedback, which I'm glad we have. The public comment is technically closed with the public hearing. If residents do want to continue to, our final plan, it's dynamic, so our final plan is being adopted by April 1st. The board will be reviewing changes and marking up the draft next week. But residents can always feel free to submit new comments, review the plan. I encourage you to send it to supervisor@irondequoit.org. Again, we're open here. We want feedback. It's been central to this process as envisioned by the executive order. Any further questions or comments from the board?
No, Supervisor, can I also suggest that for those folks who want to, they could send comments or feedback directly to any council member they felt most comfortable working with?
Of course, yes. And even if people don't, of course I encourage people to do it. Even if they don't do that, we'll always ensure that board members are forwarded the comments. But yes, you should always feel free to reach out to all 5 of your equally important board members, supervisor@irondequoit.org, kromeo@irondequoit.org, jperticone@irondequoit.org, pweiner@irondequoit.org, and pfreeman@irondequoit.org. Thank you, Kimmy. Good, well put as well. Okay, with that, I'll take a motion to close public hearing.
Vote.
In a second.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Weiner. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, the hearing is now closed. Madam Clerk, we can go back to item number 11 under Human Resources.
Okay, thank you. Item number 11, approving a health emergency plan for the town of Irondequoit.
Motion to adopt.
Moved.
Thank you, Ms. Freeman. And a second?
Second.
Mr. Perticone. Mr. Vinette, a explanation, please.
He's muted.
Yeah, sorry about that. All right. Because of the coronavirus pandemic, of course, the New York State labor law was amended, mandating all public employers to adopt a health emergency plan in the event of another such emergency or to continue battling the current situation. Our plan designates which positions are essential, as well as outlining protocols for work arrangements to keep non-essential employees working remotely, and protocols for other work arrangements, contact tracing, providing sufficient PPE. We did consult with our labor unions and we received some feedback from them, took that into account. And if the board adopts this plan, it will be part of our policies and procedures with the town and be posted in our manual.
Thanks, Mr. Vinette. And any questions from the board?
No, but a quick comment, Mr. Supervisor. I think this is a good opportunity to thank yourself, your staff, Mr. Vinette, and everyone at Town Hall. At a time that was very challenging, we kept everyone working because everyone kept working. We might not have had a formal plan laid out at that time, but we had great cohesiveness and we had a lot of people that worked together. And I think it's really important to acknowledge everyone that works in the town of Irondequoit for that effort.
Thanks, Ms. Roman. And you're right. I think that it's a reflection of the entire organization. I'm glad our bargaining units had the opportunity to review this and provide thoughtful feedback. I think we would have done something like this anyway, even if the state hadn't passed a law to require it. This is a good mandate. We say, you hear the word unfunded mandates a lot. This is a unfunded mandate, but a good unfunded mandate in the sense that this is something that towns should be doing because God forbid we have to go through this again. But yes, this was something I think probably in mid-February last year, we started envisioning the worst case scenario, which wasn't even close to what reality was. Worst case scenario was about a level 3 out of 10 of what eventually happened. So we were ready and thoughtful, but constantly needing to adapt on the fly. And I think this plan is the manifestation of that and codifying of that, working with our department heads, our human resources, and our employees to ensure that we were able to continue to do the people's business while keeping our employees safe. So it's a testament to thoughtful input from the top of the organization all the way down to the very bottom. So your comment is well received and well on point. Any further questions or comments? Just want to thank Director Vinette for his hard work on this. This is a good document, Jay, so nice work. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Resolution is adopted.
Item number 12, resolution to authorize the supervisor to enter into an agreement with the Center for Dispute Settlement to provide inclusion awareness training for all town employees.
Motion to adopt?
Moved.
And a second?
Second.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Weiner. Mr. Vinette, an explanation, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Supervisor, and thank you for your leadership and vision in requesting this initiative. We really wanted to begin this conversation in 2020, but of course, because of COVID-19, we delayed until we could do it the right way. We didn't want to just check the box, so to speak, but we want to provide a meaningful training with some real results, something the employees will take with them. I see this inclusion training is really just one step in that direction, right? And I look forward to working with the Center for Dispute Settlement and rolling this out to all of our employees. I would like to thank Assistant to the Supervisor, Maria Vecchio, and Councilwomen Freeman and Romeo. They were part of our selection team and took a lot of time interviewing some really good candidates.
Thanks, Jay. And the goal of this is to provide training, again, not looking to check a box, but do something that's thoughtful to help us in twofold, make us a better organization and ensure that all the people that work within that organization are treated with respect and without bias, but also as we serve a community of 51,000 people, ensure that outcome as well. And it ties in, I think you talk about training. We heard that a lot from Chief talking about the Executive Order 203 plan with law enforcement. It thankfully, our police has been doing training of this nature for the past several years, but this would ensure that all town employees are benefiting from inclusion awareness training, something that doesn't. The times call for it, but we're not doing this just because the times call for it. We're doing it because it's the right thing to do and long overdue. So that's our goal, to be a better organization in every aspect. So thank you, Jason, and all my colleagues on the council for funding this and moving forward. Any further questions?
Supervisor, I just want to thank you and Jason for all your hard work on this. The bottom line is, the more we talk to each other and to get to know each other, the more inclusive, the more welcoming, and the more equitable we can make our community. And I just really appreciate, and my hat is off to you all for taking this important step.
Thanks, Ms. Freeman. Okay, no further questions. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is adopted.
Item number 13, calling for a public hearing concerning the adoption of a local law relating to the regulation of the Irondequoit Cemetery.
Motion to adopt?
Moved.
And a second?
Second.
Thank you. Deputy Commissioner McGee, please.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. This resolution.
Ms. McGee, can you just forgive me 1 second? Withdraw the resolution. I'm going to make, and forgive me, I'm going to make a motion to enter in the following local law relating to the regulation of Irondequoit Cemetery. Do I have a motion to introduce local law?
Moved.
And a second?
Second.
Thank you. This would add a chapter 107 to the town code under cemeteries. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, thank you. The local law is now introduced and before the board. Ms. McGee, an explanation, please.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Yes, this resolution will call for the public hearing in next month's town board meeting in regards to establishing this new local law to govern the Irondequoit Cemetery. For a little background, to keep in conformance with the New York Cemetery Law and also to codify the practices and procedures of the cemetery, we look to establish written regulations and standards that would be used by the Department of Public Works and the cemetery staff, specifically in the management of the grounds as well as the sale and transfer of deeded property.
Thank you, Deputy Commissioner McGee. I'll now ask for another motion to adopt.
Moved.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. Now that the resolution is up for consideration, Ms. McGee, good work on this. I think we've found the past several years where we've had guidelines that perhaps might not have the full weight of the town code behind them. Sometimes it's better to mesh them into town code so there's clarity, predictability, and transparency. So thank you for doing that. I think this aims to provide that transparency, but also just clear guidelines that the town has affirmed regarding our cemetery and ensuring that the service people get, residents get. That cemetery is important for so many people, to ensure that it stays well run, well managed, and a place that provides peace and comfort for thousands of Irondequoit residents. So this would set a public hearing for 7:35 p.m. next month, April 20th, 2021. Any board members have any questions or comments for the Deputy Commissioner?
No, just a big thank you for some more good boots on the ground work, Deputy.
Thank you.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The resolution is adopted. Madam Clerk?
Item number 14, authorizing the supervisor to enter into an agreement with the Irondequoit Athletic Association for field use at 117 Kings Highway North.
Motion to adopt?
Moved.
A second?
Second.
Thank you. Commissioner Kiley, an explanation, please.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Since 2016, the town of Irondequoit and the Irondequoit Little League, also known as the Irondequoit Athletic Association, have had a memorandum of agreement between the parties for field usage at 117 Kings Highway North, the new baseball complex constructed in 2016. This agreement was shortly after the construction of the new baseball complex. This agreement was enacted by the board to allow the Little League the first right of refusal for the booking of fields for ultimately practice and games, this in consideration for their efforts in planning and execution of in partnership through the construction project. As such, through time, we continued this agreement. However, in 2020, we did not reaffirm due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Thus, before the board this evening is a re-execution of this agreement, which will allow Little League the first right of refusal for reservations on the field. However, this does not preclude or exclude other entities from utilizing the Morelli, Imbergia, and Sharaba fields at 117 Kings Highway North. In consideration of that agreement and that first right of refusal, a Little League affirms to invest a $5,000 capital project throughout the town fields, be it on this field or Rudman Road or McAvoy Park, and that would be submitted annually to the Department of Public Works.
Thanks, Bob, and this arrangement's worked out well. You know, those fields are a jewel, and I will say, Irondequoit Little League, or now it's IAA, it's come a long way since it was my father and I raking the fields for 2 hours before every weeknight. It's a not that my father didn't run a sophisticated organization, but it's very professionally run, and it's impressive, frankly. And they've been a good partner, and they're working to ensure that our youth have access to those fields and can use them in an organized way that encourages wellness and recreation and team building. But it also helps us selfishly because it helps with the maintenance of those fields. So it's a good win-win-win-win for everyone. So I'm glad that we're re-upping this. Any further questions from the board? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Resolution is adopted. Madam Clerk.
Item number 15, authorizing the supervisor to execute a memorandum of agreement with CSEA Supervisory Unit 7414-03 Labor Union.
Motion to adopt.
Moved.
Mr. Wayner, and a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Freeman. Mr. Kiley, an explanation, please.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Due to a request from a current labor foreman to reside outside of town, it became apparent that the town and the unit, the CSEA Supervisory Unit, sought to ensure that future labor foremen, which is really the middle management team within the Department of Public Works responsible for snow and ice emergency response, etc., similar to the deputy and I, reside within the town for that immediate response time to combat ever-changing weather conditions. As a result, the collective bargaining unit and I met and negotiated certain terms to be included within their collective bargaining agreement, which will allow the current labor foreman who is seeking to reside outside of town to do so, requiring the remainder of the unit, the 3 members, to continue to reside in the town, and further require all future foremen to reside within the town where they work. The verbiage to be added within the contract reads as future supervisory unit employees who do not reside within the town limits of the town of Irondequoit must live within a 2-mile radius of the town of Irondequoit while they are completing their probationary period, which is a 6-month period. After said completion of the probationary period, such employees must move to the town of Irondequoit within a 6-month time frame. Proof of residency required, with residency defined as the laws of the state of New York. As such, any future labor foreman will have a 1-year period to be able to move into the town of Irondequoit to perform the duties necessary in support of the town itself. I appreciate the supervisory unit's labor relations specialists and their current president and vice president for negotiating these terms. I think all parties are very much in agreement that it's important that the core team live within the town limits.
Thanks, Bob. Any questions from the board?
Nope, just want to thank Commissioner Kiley for his work on this.
I as well. I also, yes, of course, thank Commissioner Kiley, but also just our on the labor side too, the supervisory group. You know, this is the third resolution really tonight that's reflective, I think, of a solid relationship with our public employee unions. It helps us work through issues like this, frankly, in an easier way, but in a more productive way. And I think that's how it should go. That's a sign of a lot of work on both ends to ensure we have a mutual goal of doing the business, but also being sure that we can work together on issues that need to be resolved. So thank you, Bob, and thanks to our foreman. No further questions. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Resolution is adopted.
Item number 16, authorizing the supervisor to enter into a contract for senior golf leagues for spring/summer 2021.
Motion to adopt.
Move.
Mr. Pernicone, in a second. In a second. Thank you, Mr. Weiner. Ms. Hall, Director Hall, an explanation, please.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. So this resolution brings forward the contract for our summer leagues for golf for our men's and women's senior leagues. We got our 3 quotes that were required, and Shore Acres came in at the lowest quote. So the contract is included, and we are looking for a signature on that contract. So that's why we bring it to the board. This is a long-standing league that many of our town seniors really enjoy participating in.
Thank you, Ms. Hall. Any questions from the board? In his dreams, Mr. Weiner holds the course record at Shore Acres. Soon enough, Pete, soon enough. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Resolution is adopted.
Item number 17, authorizing budget amendments with respect to Irondequoit Community Center.
Motion to adopt.
Moved.
Thank you, Ms. Freeman. And second?
Second.
Thank you. As we are really in the final stages of finishing the Irondequoit Community Center, the state of the Irondequoit Community Center. I think someone meant to write state of the art in the resolution, but it is state of the art. But anyway, we look to equip the center with necessary furnishings relative to IT, maintenance, recreation supplies. It's necessary at this time to provide general fund support to ensure that those purchases are made in time for the opening of the facility, which is approaching faster than we probably are cognizant of. We're going to be there within the next 4 to 5 months. So this budget resolution, with the board's approval, would authorize various fund transfers to different accounts to ensure that those purchases can be made in order to adequately furnish and equip the new community center. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Resolution is adopted.
Item number 18, authorizing the supervisor to execute the second amendment to project schedule of the Irondequoit Community Center.
Motion to adopt.
Moved.
And a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Romeo. Why don't we start with our attorney for the town, Mr. Dean, who can provide just an overview of what the project amendments are as it relates to the lease. And then, actually, you know what? Let's work back. Let's work to what necessitates the project amendment, the construction piece. Mr. Kiley, and then Mr. Dean can explain the legal nature of the project amendment. Go ahead, Bob.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. The resolution before the board this evening is to authorize the supervisor to execute the second project amendment to the lease for the Irondequoit Community Center project. This amendment to the lease spells out the division of financials between the town and the landlord with regard to the installation of 12-foot butt glazed glass windowing, whereby the town will encumber the first $120,000 and whereby the landlord will contribute a maximum of $180,000, totaling the total project cost of $300,000. The landlord's contribution will be paid for in the reduced common area maintenance charges over a 10-year period. This change will result in the current gypsum board wall interior demising wall of the lower level with several windows to be transformed into a series of long storefront 12-foot tall windows, allowing natural light into the ICC space and connecting it to the remainder of the former mall. The project amendment for the board contemplates the maximum cost of the 12-foot butt glazed glass at $300,000, currently designed at that 5/8 inch thickness. The landlord has provided engineering calculations which appear to indicate that the half-inch thick glass meets all current building and safety codes, and thus, based on our interior demising wall, this preliminary review will be reviewed by our general trade sub. Once those shop drawings have been submitted, then our engineer will review those shop drawings and ultimately approve them. It should be noted that all the glass used throughout the ICC space, including this demising wall, will be tempered. Thus, if broken, will shatter into 1,000 pieces to ensure that safety standards are met. That's in essence a quick summary, Supervisor, of constructability and construction comments. I guess I'll turn it over to Andrew to go through what the Second Amendment means and why it's necessitated in this form.
Thank you, Commissioner. So as the board is aware, about 2 years ago, the town entered into a lease with the mall owner to build out lot 103 of the Medley Center Mall for its community center. The lease itself, spoke in general terms, will lease the property from you, but it incorporated a work letter, and then the work letter itself incorporated the project schedule, and those two documents set forth who does what work for the build out of the community center. So it's impossible to anticipate years in advance certain unanticipated costs that might arise. So last year, the town board approved amendments to the project schedule to allocate costs that had come up in the last year of construction that hadn't been allocated in the lease itself. So there were several items in that first amendment to the project schedule. This second amendment to the project schedule only has one item, and that's the shared cost of constructing these windows on that common area wall. So if the board were to adopt this resolution, it would require the town to pay $119,000 towards the construction of those windows, and it required the landlord to pay the difference.
Thanks. And the $119,000, for those watching at home, is not a number we plucked out of thin air. Essentially, that was the amount we had planned on spending on the outside wall. It's like any tenant. This is the outward-facing lease wall. The landlord had a design that he wanted to conform with the rest of the outward-facing areas of the mall. Frankly, we wanted to make sure that we weren't incurring costs above what we had initially planned to spend. So, in effect, the landlord is on the hook for the balance or that which exceeds what the town had initially planned on paying, and it will be through a credit to our CAM charges moving forward, which will offset really the financing for the facility. So, this doesn't really amend the ultimate budget per se. We hope that number comes down. I think there's a good chance it will. But I'll allow board members to offer any questions or comments if they have them at this time. Thanks. I just want to applaud my board members for their work on this. I want to applaud Mr. Kiley and Mr. Dean. This was a situation we needed to kind of get right, and I'm glad we took some time to get it right. Obviously, we have a schedule to adhere to, but our goal is to protect the taxpayers. We have a lot of very good board members who bring a lot of expertise to this, so it makes sure that we're thoughtful about decisions like this. So I just want the board to know I value your contributions. I thank God we have a very good attorney in Mr. Dean and Mr. Kiley, who is a DPW commissioner by day and a construction manager by night. I don't think Bob's colleagues in other towns have to do this level of construction management that Bob has provided for this project. So we thank you all for that. Hearing no further questions, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Resolution is adopted.
Item number 19, authorizing the supervisor to enter into agreements with the Power Authority of the State of New York.
Motion to adopt.
Move.
Ms. Romeo, Ms. Freeman, would you like to second?
I second.
All right. Let Kimmy introduce this one. This is So anyway, I'm excited about this resolution. I think this is the first step in a multi-step process that's going to be good in the long term for the town of Irondequoit and good for our taxpayers, but most of all good for our environment. This would start the process of entering into several agreements with the Power Authority of New York, which in effect creates a partnership using an existing structure and format that they've really perfected over the past several years, whereby they work with municipalities, equip them with what they need as far as a pro forma, to understand the cost and benefit of purchasing their street lights, which at present, in our case, are owned by RG&E, almost all of them, and then converting them to LED. Under certain incentives and financing structures, this is something that really can end up being, I don't use the wash, but even perhaps budget positive for the town's operations. It's a multi-step process, but at the very beginning, what we're doing here is entering into several agreements with NYPA to spearhead that, to conduct a lot of due diligence to really figure out what the cost would be associated towards it. We know the acquisition cost, but more the conversion cost. With that, I'm going to let Mr. Dean fill in some holes that I probably created with my explanation, and then we'll give the board the opportunity to ask questions. Mr. Dean?
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. So as you mentioned, the New York Power Authority acts as an intermediary for these types of projects. So the state legislature has made it easier for municipalities to purchase their streetlights from utility companies. And when the municipalities purchase the lights, they then upgrade them to LED technology. And the municipality saves money both on the electricity cost and on the facilities charges. So there's 3 contracts we would need with NYPA. This resolution concerns 2 of them. The first is what's called a master cost recovery agreement. That contract doesn't bind the town to anything. What it is, it's a set of boilerplate that parties agree to. And it's basically it's equivalent of a master supply agreement. It says these are the terms that will govern any deal that we do in the future. So the master cost recovery agreement is really just a form contract that sets the stage for future projects with NYPA. One of those future projects is the street lighting initiative. And that's the authorization to proceed. That's the second contract that we would need authority from the board from here. What that contract does is it lets NYPA start doing preliminary design work and bidding work to install devices, LED devices, should we go forward and purchase the streetlights from Rochester Gas and Electric. So that second contract does commit the town to pay NYPA for its preliminary work. If we eventually do go through with the purchase from Rochester Gas and Electric, those costs would get rolled into the total costs that would either be financed or paid years from now. But there'll be several opportunities for the town to decide if it wants to not proceed with the projects. If we do that, this second contract would put the town on the hook for approximately $30,000 worth of NYPA's upfront work. So these 2 contracts would get NYPA started. We'd still have to negotiate the purchase contract from Rochester Gas and Electric separately. So those 2 purchases, that purchase goes in parallel with NYPA's efforts.
Thank you, Mr. Dean. And if you look at the long-term investment you're making in the purchase and conversion, that's offset by 2 primary factors. A, we're not paying RG&E the annual maintenance fees, which are quite large. Frankly, most of our electricity costs are not due to the electrons we receive, but more the those maintenance charges of those lights, those over 2,000 lights that are in the town. We also would receive savings through lower energy usage through the LED installation. So year to year, our operating burdens are offset by a number larger than the annual investment charge. Should we finance this? We can also, if we elect to, pay cash with using fund balance, a portion, all. That's a decision, I think, for a later period of time. But what is clear in using the experience of other municipalities is this does prevent a good cost benefit proposition, a value proposition for municipalities. The state is structured as such, and NYPA has really, over the past several years, worked to refine and perfect this. So I'm excited about this. I commend Mr. Kiley, who is not going to, his department is not going to be tasked with the maintenance and operations of these, but I I think Bob thinks is envisioned some ways where the department can handle that, and certainly there's other instances where we would contract that out on an annual basis to ensure that there's proper maintenance and operations. But there's a lot of cool things you can do with the LED lights. There's monitoring, ensuring that if a light does go out, you're notified so that the resident doesn't have to call RG&E. They can call Town Hall. We can get to it and reinstall it or fix it relatively in real time. There's a lot of other smart technology elements to this as well. So really, again, this is, I think, the first step in a multi-month process, perhaps even multi-year, but something that in the long run is going to be very good. I think if it makes sense for us to move forward with it for the town and our taxpayers and our environment as well. So encourage a yes vote, and we'll hopefully have more resolutions in the future as part of this process. Any questions or comments?
Mr. Supervisor, just at a quick look, we were realizing an ROI that would pay itself back in 7 to 10 years on the outset. Is that correct?
Yes, and then yes, absolutely. And then after that, it's all cost positive. Well, for the most, we're not paying back any cost of the project. It would just be electricity costs, which would be substantially lower than they are at present. So yes, short answer is yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Alrighty. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Resolution is adopted. This concludes our body of work for this evening's regular town board meeting. The next scheduled workshop meeting is to take place Tuesday, April 13th, 2021 at 4 p.m. We are going to have a work session next Tuesday at 4 p.m., a workshop session, no items for board action. That'll be at 4 p.m. We will have a special town board meeting, a brief one, on the 30th of March. It's March 30th of March, 4 p.m. at the Broderick Room. The sole agenda item planned at that point will be the adoption of the Town of Irondequoit's Executive Order 203 plan. Our next regular town board meeting is Tuesday, April 20th, 2021, 7 p.m. in the Broderick meeting room. This will hopefully be the last time I have to look at you all via Zoom and Hollywood Squares, and we can get back to some normalcy and you get to see my beautiful face in person. But I thank all of you for being patient with this, and thank our residents for sticking with us. We've tried our best to ensure transparency and open government during this time, and hopefully we're getting closer and closer back to some normalcy where every Tuesday, the third Tuesday of every month, it's must-see TV in the Broderick meeting room at Town Hall on cable access television. With that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move.
In a second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting is adjourned. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.